The Edge by Roland Smith, Chapter 9, Part 2. Search and Rescue. My ankles and calves were killing me. There is no way to strengthen the weird little muscles you use when you're walking on scree. It's kind of like walking on fist-sized marbles. Zopa's headlamp was 100 feet in front of Mom and me, following a trail that only he seemed able to see. "You think Zopa knows where he's going?" Mom asked. "Zopa knows where you're going before you know. So yeah, he knows. How are your legs?" "They're on fire. How about yours?" "Charcoal." "Glad to hear it. I thought it was only me." I suspected her legs hurt worse than mine. When I was 3 months old, she shattered her hip and broke her back in a climbing accident which ended her climbing career. "Zopa doesn't seem to be bothered," she said. "That's because nothing ever bothers Zopa." "How old is he anyway?" "Best guess? 613, give or take a century." The two-way chirped. Mom unclipped it. "Go ahead." "Philip here, checking in. Any sign of them? Over." Apparently, Philip had figured out how to use a two-way radio. Probably remembered it from a movie he'd seen, or maybe even directed. "No sign of them yet, but we've only been gone half an hour." "Roger that. My concern is that the old man has misread the drone photos. I doubt he's seen many of them in his life." Apparently, Philip didn't understand that when you talk on a two-way, everybody could hear you, including the person you were insulting, if he happened to be standing in hearing range. The other thing he didn't understand was that Zopa doesn't need a map to know where he is and where he's going. He has a built-in GPS. He's a global positioning monk. "What a moron," I said under my breath. "I didn't copy that. Can you repeat? Over." I was about ready to repeat that, but Mom shook her head. "We'll keep searching. If they wander into camp, let us know." "Roger that. Out." "I think we've had enough of Philip for one night." She switched the two-way off and stowed it. I was a little shocked at how calm she was over this whole mess. "I'm a little worried about Philip," I said. "I've seen worse. The person you're going to have to keep your eye on is Raffi. He's just a jerk. No big deal." "He's more than that. He's a 1 in 20. "Huh? Back in the day, that's what your dad and I called them. About 1 in 20 climbers are twisted. Things haven't changed. You'll need to stay clear of him. You handled his Everest lie perfectly. If you become a threat to him, he'll hurt you. He's a terrible climber. On the top of the cliff, I had to reset his harness. He claimed that down under they rigged them differently. Aki and Homa and Alicia know what they are about, although the two boys are not in the best of shape. Raffi is a completely different story. He has eyes for Alessia, and Alessia obviously has eyes for you." "I seriously doubt that," I said. "And I'm serious about you watching your step around Raffi. He's not wrapped tight. He's singled you out as his main competition, not only for Alessia, but for the climb." "This isn't a competition." Mom laughed, and I immediately regretted saying that because of course it was a competition. When 2 or more people are climbing together, it's always a competition, even if the people are friends, which is why I prefer to climb alone. And even then, it's a competition between me and whatever I'm climbing. "You know what I mean." "I do," she said. "So, what do you think of Alessia?" Leading question, and I wasn't going to climb that route, especially with my mom. I shrugged, then picked up my pace to catch up with Zopa, despite my sore calves and ankles. Zopa said nothing when I joined him. He was walking quickly across the loose rock, his headlamp down. After 100 yards or so, he pointed at the ground. "There." The rocky ground looked exactly like the mile of rocky ground we just covered. "You don't see?" I stared at the ground harder. I saw rocks. He toed a rock with his boot. "This one. And this one, both turned over earlier today by someone." "You are good at seeing things, patterns, things that are not supposed to be there, like the ghost cat earlier. You will need to pay attention on this climb, closer attention than usual." He shined his light ahead along the scree and pointed. "Tell me where the trail is." It took me a while to see it, but eventually I saw a clear trail where the rocks had been disturbed. "I see it." "Good." Zopa started walking again. "It is easier to see at night with a headlamp because of the shadows the light casts on the rocks." It has to be the film crew, I said. We didn't come this way today, and we're the only people here. Zopa looked off into the darkness in front of us. I am not sure of that. What do you mean? You don't feel it? All I was feeling was my sore legs. I guess not. Someone is coming our way. Who? There aren't any villagers within 100 miles of this place. There are no roads. Unless you count the goat path along the river as a road. There's no reason for anyone to be out here. Perhaps they are coming because we are here. Why? Good question, Zopa said. And I could be wrong, but I still have the feeling that this climb is going to go bad. Philip? Cindy? Raffi? Zopa shook his head. I have led stranger groups. I laughed. You're forgetting that Philip is in charge of the climb. Zopa smiled. That is correct. I had forgotten he was the leader. We walked another 300 yards, with me glancing back at Mom to make sure she was keeping pace with us. There. I see the trail, I said. Not the rocks. He was not pointing at the ground. He was pointing at a pinpoint of light in the distance. I squinted my eyes. There were 2 lights, then 3, then 2 again, slowly moving toward us. The film crew? I presume. It took us a half an hour to reach them. They looked like they had fallen off a cliff. Jack and Will were covered with bloody lacerations and bruises. They were carrying Ethan on a crude litter made out of sticks and climbing rope. Ethan actually looked better than they did, except for his swollen right ankle, which was either broken or badly sprained. I told you we were heading in the right direction, J.R. said hoarsely through swollen lips. Got any water? He gulped down an entire bottle, then told us what happened. They had fallen off a cliff. After several false starts, they finally found the climb Philip wanted them to scout. Huge cliff face, 1,000 feet, more like 1,500, whatever, you can't miss it. If you're in the right place, which we weren't for hours because Philip can't read a topo map or interpret drone photos. The cliff is riddled with caves. Looks like a nesting site for giant swallows, more like a dragon rookery. This one was from Ethan, strapped in the litter. He must have been a fantasy fan. Anyway, it's a nice place to shoot, dramatic. I have to give Philip props for that, even though he didn't know where the cliff was. So we get there about an hour before dark. After that, at that point, we should have just turned around, but Ethan said we should do a short recon climb, figure out some of the camera angles, test the rock. Hey, I just made a suggestion, and not one of you objected. Whatever. Anyway, we started climbing with fearless leader here, setting ropes, and we get maybe 50 feet up when an anchor pops loose. Rotten rock, and these guys are 30 pounds heavier than they should be. Lard climbers, not my fault. So we fall off the cliff. We didn't fall, we slid. If we had fallen, there would have been 4 busted corpses at the base of the cliff. It was like sliding down the side of a cheese grater. Probably took off some of the extra pounds you guys are carrying, which is a good thing. The only thing that's shedding pounds is hauling your worthless corpse across this scree in the dark. By the time we get back to camp, you'll be walking better than us. All of this ribbing was good-natured. Surviving a fall always cheers you up, regardless of the pain you're in. Mom shined her headlamp on Ethan's black and blue and yellow ankle. It's not broken, Ethan said. Didn't hear any bones crunch inside. I'll soak it in the river and keep it elevated when we get back to camp. It will be as good as new in a couple of days. My biggest problem is getting dumped on the ground 3 times now. The next time might be the end of me. You're lucky we didn't leave you at the bottom of the cliff for the dragons to devour. I took a closer look at the litter, surprised that they had gotten this far with it. Zopa shrugged out of his pack and gave it to me. I'm a Sherpa, Zopa said. I will carry you. Zopa? J.R. asked in shock. Apparently he hadn't recognized him in the dark. You're the climb master? Jack asked. Zopa from Everest? Ethan asked. Wow, didn't expect to see you here, Will said. You can't carry me, Ethan said. But Zopa did carry him, ignoring everyone's protest, over the treacherous scree in a fireman's carry across his shoulders all the way back to camp without one slip or any rest. It was close to midnight by the time we got back to camp. Alessia and Philip were the only ones awake. Zopa set Ethan down next to the fire. Alessia was concerned and relieved. Thank God you're back. We were so worried. Philip didn't look concerned or relieved. He looked mad. Is the camera equipment okay? It's all fine, JR answered, slumping down next to Ethan. Then why didn't you run ahead and film Zopa carrying Ethan into camp? JR looked at him through dull, exhausted eyes. We all looked at Philip through dull, exhausted eyes. I couldn't remember being that tired, and I didn't carry Ethan on my back or a litter, and I hadn't fallen off a cliff. Run ahead? JR asked. Are you dense? Zopa just came into camp carrying an injured climber around his neck. A dramatic moment, and you didn't film it? Oh. Don't worry about it, Philip said, doing a complete 360 attitude change by giving him a smile. But we can't miss moments like that. Yeah, sorry. Did Plank supply us with a big first aid kit? In my tent, but Cindy is sleeping. Finally. I hate to wake her. I was speechless. So was everyone else. Philip looked at Zopa. I know it's late and that you were tired, but could you pick Ethan up? All you have to do is haul him into the darkness, then walk back in with him. Same path, just like you did before, but this time we'll have the cameras set up. One next to the fire, one handheld, as you're bringing him in. Don't look at the camera or talk, just act as if the camera isn't there. Easy. Zopa picked up his pack. It will be easy because I will not be there. I am going to my tent. Philip's smile vanished. He raised his voice. We can't do this in the morning. We have to shoot now in the dark when everyone's tired. It won't play when you're rested and the wounds are dressed. Zopa walked into his tent without a word. Okay, Philip said. I guess one of you will have to carry. Forget it, Philip, Mom said. You're not getting your shot. It's over. And you're not supposed to be filming the film crew. You're supposed to be filming the kids. Philip stared at her, red-faced, as if his head was about to explode. You're not in charge here. I'm in charge, and I know very well what I'm supposed to do. And Pete just missed the preliminary interviews. They were pretty good. I just reviewed the videos I shot. He glanced at Alessia. We have a couple of real stars, naturals. I'm pretty sure some of what I shot will make it into the final cut. Unfortunately, Pete isn't on video. If you had a camera, why didn't you film us coming back to camp? Mom asked. Philip's face turned redder, if that was possible. I tried to reach you on the two-way. If you had answered, perhaps I could have filmed you coming back to camp. Why didn't you respond? Must have been out of range, Mom lied. I'm going to get the first aid kit. I told you that Cindy was asleep. I'll be quiet. Oh, and my son's name is not Pete. It's Peek. P-E-A-K. What kind of name is that? Mom grinned. His name.